Washington, November 24, 2025. The political tug-of-war between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin has long since left the confines of diplomatic chambers and international summits. Today, its reverberations are being felt across American cities, immigrant neighborhoods, workplaces, and refugee shelters. The ripple effects of a conflict that has devastated much of Europe are now directly impacting the daily lives of thousands of Ukrainians who sought safety thousands of miles away. As the United States implements new migration policies, the reality of Europe's most destructive conflict in decades collides with the hopes of nearly 200,000 Ukrainian refugees living across the country. What began quietly, through administrative updates, changes in fees, and delays in processing, has escalated into a crisis of profound uncertainty. The humanitarian program established under the presidency of Joseph Biden, which aimed to protect Ukrainians fleeing the Russian invasion, has quickly descended into chaos. Work permits have expired, security checks have piled up with no resolution, renewal applications remain suspended for months. Then came the immigration raids. Sudden inspections, unannounced workplace visits, and arrests triggered waves of panic among communities already scarred by war, exile, and the terror of bombardment. In cities like Chicago, Philadelphia, New York, and Seattle, Ukrainian families who had legally arrived under humanitarian programs now live trapped within their homes, fearful of every knock on the door. Some families have fled once again, seeking safety in Canada, Germany, or South America, hoping to rebuild their lives for the third or fourth time in as many years. Others stay, clinging to the hope that this storm of bureaucracy will pass, even as their documents expire and their futures seem to vanish before their eyes. Their testimonies reveal a profound emotional exhaustion. They cannot return to Ukraine, where missiles continue to strike cities, men are conscripted, and families remain divided. At the same time, they cannot rely on the United States to provide dependable protection. Work permits take months to renew, often arriving already expired after interminable delays. Fees have doubled or even tripled in many cases. A new $1,000 mandatory pre-selection charge places countless families in an impossible dilemma, choosing between feeding themselves, paying rent, or maintaining legal status. Life has become a relentless cycle for many, like a hamster on a wheel. Build a life, lose it, start over elsewhere, lose it again. Each day brings fresh uncertainty. Regulatory changes, rising fees, administrative rejections, or the looming threat of deportation. The psychological burden frequently outweighs the financial one. Many report constant anxiety, sleepless nights, and the deep sense that neither the administration, the government, nor any responsible authority genuinely cares about their plight. This crisis comes at a moment when relations between Washington and Kyiv are increasingly strained. President Zelensky confronts a war entering its fourth year, with Russian forces advancing across multiple front lines. Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump has repeatedly criticized Ukraine, alleging ingratitude and suggesting the U.S. might cut aid, restrict humanitarian intake, or demand further concessions from Kyiv. Simultaneously, reports compiled by multiple sources and relayed by Ground News indicate a surge in immigration enforcement across the country. Workplace inspections are escalating, deportations are increasing, and vulnerable populations, including Ukrainians who arrived legally, are being swept up in operations originally intended for undocumented workers. This situation has created a dual-front crisis. On one hand, Russian forces push to consolidate territorial gains before any negotiation. On the other, Ukrainian officials must navigate a U.S. partner whose domestic decisions threaten the stability of its own citizens abroad. Across American cities, displaced families are enduring a second ordeal, one not of explosions, but of endless waiting and the constant fear of losing yet again what little they had begun to rebuild. Analysts warn that as political tensions mount, the instability could spread further. Humanitarian protection programs rely entirely on executive decisions, and a single directive can upend the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. At the heart of this turmoil lies a fundamental question. Where does political strategy end, and where does human compassion begin? Ukrainian families fled a brutal war. They should not face renewed instability, fear, or the risk of statelessness due to decisions they cannot control. Their stories deserve to be heard. No home that survived missile strikes should be shattered by bureaucratic procedure. No family that endured war should have to relive the terror of starting over again. In shelters, community centers, and apartments from coast to coast, these families live in a state of suspended anxiety. Children attend schools with friends who may disappear overnight due to paperwork delays. Parents juggle multiple jobs, navigating fee hikes and complex legal forms while trying to provide the stability their children so desperately need. Nights are sleepless, days are a countdown to the next administrative hurdle, and the simple act of planning for tomorrow has become a task fraught with stress. This story is not merely about immigration policy, it is about lives caught in the crossfire of geopolitics. While missiles fall in Ukraine, papers pile up in U.S. offices. While leaders negotiate strategies on a global scale, ordinary families negotiate for their very survival, facing a reality in which their fate depends on the stroke of an executive pen. The fragility of these families' existence underscores a sobering truth. Humanitarian protection can vanish in an instant, leaving entire communities vulnerable. As political calculations unfold thousands of miles away, the human cost is immediate, tangible, and profound. For these families, the American dream of safety, security, and a chance to rebuild has become a complex labyrinth of uncertainty, fear, and unrelenting bureaucratic obstacles.